Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, depending on where you are located. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Matthew Knutson, and I am Manager of Solutions Marketing at Arcserve. Joining me today is Stacy Budd, Principal Consultant, Pre-Sales at Arcserve. During today's webinar, you will learn about several myths or misconceptions about Office 365 as it relates to data protection and what the realities are related to those areas. The presentation and demo takes approximately 30 to 40 minutes, and if there are any questions during the webcast, please use the question box and we will answer the questions at the end of the webinar. Next slide. Arcserve is the global leader in data protection solutions for the mid-market. Arcserve has been in the data protection space for more than 30 years and has helped organizations worldwide utilize our solutions to help with backup, data protection, and business continuity. Next slide. Office 365. Office 365 has gone through tremendous growth and adoption the past few years. At the end of the most recent fiscal year, Microsoft reported 135 million monthly active users of Office 365 Commercial. With this much adoption, there definitely can be some myths and misconceptions related to Office 365 as it relates to data protection. Backup is all about recovery, the ability to go back to a point in time used for recovery after a loss of data. As an example, a mailbox is accidentally deleted and a customer needs to go back to the backup and recover the mailbox. Let's take a look at a few Office 365 backup myths now. The first one, deleted items are retained indefinitely by default. The reality of this, in Office 365, items are retained for only 90 days in the recycle bin. Another myth is that items deleted from recycle bin can be recovered. The reality is once items are in the recycle bin, are deleted, they are not recoverable. And a third myth is that deleted mailboxes can be restored beyond 30 days. Now, there's a couple key things to look at related to that myth is many customers will have an E1 level version of Office 365. And with that, you can only restore a mailbox within 30 days. The default is actually 14 days, but can be expanded to a maximum of 30 days. Now, if a customer has an expanded plan, which requires an increased fee to an E3 or E5 plan, they can restore a deleted mailbox beyond 30 days if they enable a few features, but even with that, the maximum time frame that could be restored would be 90 days. So Office 365 addresses availability, not recoverability. So this means that data in the cloud is still your responsibility. Next slide. If we take a look at Office 365 protection with Arcserve, it really is focused to eliminate the risk of data loss due to an Office 365 outage, whether intentional or accidental user deletion. The ability to protect Office 365 emails and SharePoint to a backup location on-premise or to the cloud, and the granular level of backup to choose which items you would like to back up, whether emails, calendars, contacts, tasks, notes, etc. You can choose to back up only important folders and exclude others. With the backup process, the information is backed up and goes through a deduplication process to remove any duplicate information. It also goes through a compression process to be able to optimize that storage and file size to the maximum capacity and maximum capability to be the best use of that storage. If we take a look at the graphic on the right-hand side here, a couple things to point out. You can see the Office 365 user mailboxes, and that information can be backed up to a recovery point server, and the user would have that ability to do a granular restore, either from that primary backup site or store, or from a secondary location. And a secondary location could be to tape, to disk, to cloud, and all of this is managed through a centralized management interface. Arcserve solutions are offered as a software-based offering, offered in the cloud as well as an appliance. I would now like to turn it over to Stacy, who can step through a brief solutions demonstration of Arcserve Backup for Office 365.
Thanks, Matt, and hello, everybody. We're going to just go through and show you a quick example of how easy it is to create that backup plan and back up that data that's in Office 365 to those destinations, which could be, again, on-prem. They could be in the Arcserve cloud. They could be into a number of destinations there. So I'm going to log into my server here real quick, and then we'll log into our console, which is a web-based or a browser-based tool, right? So we're going to log in here, and we're going to take a look. When we first log in, we're going to see the dashboard, which is a quick overview of the state of your backups, including your Office 365 backups, the state of your storage, primarily, how much space am I taking up? Am I starting to run out of space? What's my advantages with deduplication and things like that? When it comes to managing UDP, most of everything that you do is going to be here within the Resources tab. It's where we're going to take and we're going to perform our backups, create our backup plans. It's where we're going to perform any disaster recovery that we do, and all our restores will be from here as well. So what I thought we would do is we're going to go directly right into our backup plans. I already have an Office 365 plan. We'll use that so we have some data to restore and all of that. But to create a new backup plan, I'm just going to come up, choose add a plan, and then I'm going to choose to name the plan whatever I would want to here. So we would call it something like, Matt's mail data, right? Anything that we want to call it, right, as far as that goes. And of course, it could be the organization or any name that you want to use. Then we're going to choose the type of backup task that we want to do. So in this case, we're performing an Office 365 Exchange online backup. Notice that we can also do Office 365 SharePoint Online as well. Focusing on the Exchange, right? The first thing that we're going to define is a proxy. This is where the data is going to be presented to. Usually this is going to be your UDP server, your Arcserve UDP appliance, something like that. But anywhere that we have an Arcserve UDP agent could be this proxy server. So I'm going to choose my backup server there. And then we're going to choose also, what do we want to do, right? What data do we want to import? So I'm going to select sources that have already been imported. Saved us a step here. So I've already connected to my Exchange Online here, my development server for this. We're going to connect, and it's telling me you're already connected, but just to show you what that looks like, we're going to connect for this, and it's going to show me my different users that I can bring in. I can protect all of Exchange Online. I could search for a specific user. If you had a lot of users, right, we could search for that as well. And let's just pick someone like Brian here, right? We'll move Brian over, and we would add him into our backup plan, right? Or we could bring everybody over as far as that goes. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Now, Mark's already in one, so I mean, when it comes to that, your data can only be in one backup plan at a time, your source data. So if I save this, it would go ahead and update that existing plan that we have, which we're not going to save. We're going to use that existing plan for our restores. So what are the other options that we have here? We could back up all the data or all the folders within there. We could go through and we could do exclusions, right? So if we don't want to back up certain folders, we could exclude that as well. And then, for our advanced options, backup in place archiving and recoverable items as well, right, for that. Now, when we look at our destination, this will be to a recovery point server. This is the brains of UDP, if you will. This is where we perform deduplication, replication, and a lot of other services that just would be a lot to mention today. But to that point, when you think about this, this is going to take advantage of deduplication, right? So we're going to back up to a deduplicated data store. If I didn't want to dedupe that data, it could be to a non-deduplicated data store, but it's going to go ahead and take advantage of that deduplication. So not only are you getting the advantage within Exchange of single instance storage, but we're taking it a step further and deduping that backup data as well. And this destination could be, you know, the Arcserve, a recovery point server in the Arcserve cloud. It could be a recovery point server that you have on-prem on your own hardware or one of our appliances there as well. This recovery point server also is going to have rules about encryption. Okay, so if you have the data and this set up to be encrypted, when that data comes to this recovery point server, it should be encrypted in motion and at rest as well. Our schedule is going to default to a daily infinite incremental. Okay, we like infinite incrementals here at Arcserve. It makes your backups really efficient, just doing incremental backups after the initial full. If you do want to schedule full backups, you could do that as well. So we're not limited to just a daily incremental, and we could click on this and change that backup as well. We can also add additional backup schedules. So if I do want to have more of a traditional backup, like a daily, weekly, monthly, I could put that in place. And if I did want to make these fulls or incrementals, I could do that too, right? We're going to leave these at incrementals, and we'll leave the day to run and all that just to the defaults. But it's fairly easy to edit that backup schedule. And even to add a custom schedule throughout the day. So if there was a reason why we wanted to back up every hour or 3 hours or 30 minutes, or in some cases even 15 minutes, right? Depending on data change rules and things like that as well, we could do that as well. Also, when we do that, we're going to set up retention, right? So we're going to have our retention, and by default, when we select those backup plans, there was retention settings, and I could do it there. And we can always just come in here and change our retention settings right here as well as part of that schedule. Lastly is going to be an advanced tab where we can put in some scripts to run before and after the backup if that's required. We're going to go in and enable email alerts so that you'll be alerted to things like jobs that were missed or crashed or canceled, you know. And if you use infinite incrementals, there's a merge process that goes in place, and you'd want to be alerted if that changed or if that for some reason didn't work, so that you would know, you know, to address that and everything like that. Now, one last kind of note here is when we look at, you know, and we just decided our source and everything with that, you know, you're going to have, you know, the proper administrative rights in order to go through and, you know, be able to connect and perform those backups, right? So that you'll have the admin rights or application impersonation right in order to do that. Now, I'm not going to save this plan. We already have one in place, so we're just going to go ahead and cancel it. And we'll take a look at what's involved with restoring that data. So if I go up to my Office 365 backup here, and I go ahead and just right click, I get a list of things that I could do. I could also go up to a menu option. So if you're more menu driven, you could do that as well. And we could choose to, number one, we could back up on the fly. So if somebody said, hey, I need you to back up mailboxes right now for some reason, you could go ahead and do that there as well. Then you can go through and obviously what we're going to take a look at right now is restores, right? So we're going to connect to that. It's going to load the agent view, right? And this is the agent that's running on my server here. And we're going to choose which backup do I want to restore from. So I'm only doing one backup a day, right? If I happen to be doing more than one backup a day, we'd see a list of those particular backups. We're then going to choose next. Now I'm only backing up Mark's email box here, and we can go through and we can search for data if we want to do that. We can also go through, and if I want to go into his inbox, we can go in and find a particular email and restore that particular email if I wanted to do that as well. Notice some of the other things that are up here: calendars, contacts, you know, tasks, you know, all of that is going to be in here as well. So you have a good list of what you can restore and how you can restore that. Now the default option is going to be restore this back to the original location. You can change that. So if you needed to restore it to an alternate location, maybe there was like a maintenance folder or something like that that you wanted to restore the emails into first, and it is going to prompt you for those credentials in order to do that restore to access Office 365. And then we would put in that alternate location here as well, so that destination path for that. Now, I'm not going to run a backup and show, or a restore and show you that. That can be quite boring for you, but that's the process, and I really think that's the important thing, to see the process. We can always, we're going to tell you at the end of this presentation, leverage us to do more full-blown demonstrations and all that for you as well. So I'm going to hand it back over to Matt here. And, thank you very much. And I'll be talking to you again in a moment.
Great, thanks, Stacy. Backup is all about recovery. It's about the ability to go back in time, as Stacy demonstrated. Another key aspect is archive. And archive is all about discovery and the collection of data. And the purpose really is driven by preservation and retention, combined with the ability to search for the information that you need. For example, you might need to search for emails across an organization that are needed as proof of a legal inquiry. Next slide. The key part here is backup and archive equals complementary solutions. They really do offer a key data protection solution for an organization, supporting backup as well as supporting archive. Next slide. So related to archive, let's take a look at some myths related to Office 365. First myth here, Office 365 provides full indexing for messages and attachments. The reality is this is limited in Office 365. A second myth is that archive emails cannot be altered. Office 365 does not protect items in the archive from tampering or alteration. A third myth is that archived emails cannot be removed. Admins and users can actually remove items from an archive, and this can become a key issue for an organization. For Arcserve and the Arcserve archive, that information can only be purged by a data protection officer or organization that would allow that information to be removed. And this is key when you're dealing with things like GDPR and other compliance to make sure that that information has been removed. The last myth here on this slide, Office 365 supports granular retention policy. And the reality is in Office 365, this is simply not supported. To continue on with just a few additional archiving myths in Office 365 is that Office 365 offers granular search options. The reality is this is limited to only 2 searches concurrently. Another myth is that Office 365 offers journaling, and this is not supported in Office 365. And the last point here is that Office 365 allows you to select the location of your archive. And the reality is in Office 365, you can only back up that information in Azure Cloud only. So with Arcserve, you would have the ability to be able to back up that information on-premise or in the cloud of your choice. If we take a look here at email archiving requirements, some of the key drivers, and some of these we've already touched on, is meeting regulatory and compliance requirements. It's key for organizations to have that long-term compliance related to their emails, mitigating any legal risks, legal proceedings that might be a legal hold or other legal action against an organization to be able to preserve those emails as records is critical for an organization and information that would be in Office 365. And lastly is increasing the efficiency and optimizing storage here, that the IT admins can configure and manage all aspects of data protection and archiving as it relates to Arcserve through a single, eloquently simple user console. Next slide. This, I'd like to turn it back over to Stacy, and he'll just step through a few areas related to archiving as they exist in Arcserve related to Office 365.
Thanks, Matt. And when we look at, archiving and for Office 365 or UDP archiving, there's several different roles we could look at. We could look at the administrator role that sets up the tool and gives everybody their different access levels and sets up the mailboxes and things like that. What we'll focus on today is the auditor role. This is probably the most important role within this. This is the user that's going to go through and perform those different tasks of searching the data, requesting data, mailboxes or emails to be put on legal hold, and being able to create tags and things like that. So we're going to go through. I logged in. It is again, this is an online based tool, so you're going to connect to your console. This console could be in the Arcserve cloud. It could be a virtual instance that you have. Fairly straightforward as far as that goes. And when we look at starting out here, I'm on the search criteria. I don't know anybody that does just normal searches, right? We're going to look at the advanced search, and we can also save these searches, right? Which is going to be important because I don't know about everybody else, but my day gets busy and I may start a project and then later on, and then I get interrupted, so then I need to come back to that later on. So we can start those searches, save the searches, and then pick up where we left off from that. Now we can search, and when we look at the archiving tool, we can search, based on who it came from, who the email was to, what's in the subject of the email, content that's in the body of the emails. If we're creating tags, we can search by those tags that we've already created and all of that as well. We can create notes, right, and do that too. We can look at date ranges, and we can also do a random percentage here as well. So if it's an organization, I know some financial organizations require, that certain amount of data be or email be randomly selected and tested throughout the quarter or month or year. So you can definitely go in here and perform those random searches for that as well. Now, when we go through, and if I were to just choose, something like in the body, like something that had, admin in it, and we search that, very straightforward, right? So here's some different emails, and we were going to search the attachments as well as the content in the email. We can download that there as well if we need to do that. We can create tags for this, and we can also get a preview of that email there as well. Coming back up to the top, we are going to audit whenever somebody touches an email or views a message. So you will be able to do that. We see here that just now I went in and I viewed a message, and here's my IP address. Here's the user that I'm logged in as well, so that you can kind of have that all important. Who's messing around, who's looking at what, kind of backtrack. Always very important with this type of data as well. If we go into our saved searches, we can take a look at some different searches that we have here, and you're going to have them under the different names or whatever that you create them from. So fairly straightforward. So if I wanted to go in and see anything with the word CNN in there, we can go in and see that. Now, remember, this here, it's not even from that particular news organization, but there was a subject in there that covered CNN, right? So we did see that within there. References are going to be able to, things that we've placed on legal hold, tags that we've created, and of course, notes that we've created as well. Lastly is going to be the tag functionality, right? So we can create a tag, and when we create that tag, we can request that, something be placed on hold or some be reviewed maybe by another auditor, so we can create that tag, and maybe that tag is something like for review, right? So we go through and we create a search, and we find some stuff, but I don't really know 100% if it's something that needs to be to be, put on legal hold. So I create a tag that's for review, and I have, a different auditor come in and see if they agree, right? So they, instead of having to come to my desktop or whatever, what they can do is they can log in, search, use that tag as part of the search, and just come up with those list of emails. And, yeah, that's stuff that needs to be placed on legal hold for this particular project or legal case or whatever it might be. That was a quick overview of the auditor role. I hope that, it kind of showed you some of the capabilities. Again, we always recommend, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to us and all that. We do a more in-depth demo for you when it comes to that.
Great, thanks, Stacy. We actually have a couple questions here. We did touch on this earlier, but it says, can I back up Office 365 to tape? We did mention that earlier, in that you can back up your Office 365 information to tape. You could back it up to the cloud, or you could back it up to another storage location.
Sure, and that process, Matt, would be, we back it up first to a disk location where we're deduping that data. We have our short-term retention there, and then we can use tape for our long-term retention if we need to do that. I had a customer that was a medical customer, and they're required to retain some of their data for 23 years, right? So disk isn't always the best solution for that. At least not local disk. Maybe cloud
Right.
is a good alternative for that, and tape is always going to be out there for, depends on the use case, but definitely would be an example where you might want to move it off of that more expensive disk onto cheaper media like disk or cloud or something like that as well.
Sure. Here's another one. Can I restore an email that was deleted from Office 365 1 year ago?
So, I mean, when we look at that question, it really depends on the retention, right? So
Exactly.
absolutely, we can go through, and as long as you're restoring, or not restoring, but you're running those backups and you have that retention built into your backup plan, there's no reason why you couldn't restore something from a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, as long as we still have it within the retention that's set, right? So great question there.
That is a great question. Next slide. There's one more thing we'd like to cover before we wrap up today. We really appreciate you taking time today to learn a bit more about some of the myths related to Office 365 and how Arcserve can address those. And that is, next slide, a current promotion that we are running. It's the buy one, get one free for our appliance. If you are looking to implement an appliance-based backup and archiving solution, now is a great time to be able to take advantage of a buy one, get one free offer. A couple different highlights of this particular promotion. Obviously, you have your choice to be able to back up to your own environment or to a cloud environment. If you want to go the route here of an appliance, with this promotion, you would get the second appliance absolutely free. You would double the storage of both models at no extra charge and receive 5 terabytes of Cloud Direct storage free. And the final point here is you would be able to back up your SharePoint and Office 365 data for an unlimited number of users, which is a significant value. Want to say thanks to Stacy for stepping through the demonstrations. Want to thank you everyone for attending today. Just a couple items here related to what's next. Here are some helpful resources. You can go to arcserve.com. We have case studies and white papers and other information available there. We do have free trial versions of our backup software. We do have trial software of the archiving software as well to be able to evaluate that. And we have support engineers and sales staff available to help you with any of those questions. So please feel free to reach out to us through our website. And I appreciate everyone's time today, and just thank you for your time, and thank you very much.